Hello, everybody, and welcome to our mini webinar today, the 7 steps of data analysis, also known as how data analysis is like the Bachelorette TV show. I am William M. Bannon Jr. of Stats Whisperer. Visit us anytime you like at www.thestatswhisperer.com. So introduction, just a couple of small goals here today. One, to review the 7 steps necessary to conduct a quantitative data analysis study. Maybe you've been in a situation where you've had to do a quantitative analysis study and you don't know where to start. What do I do first? What do I do second? What do I do third? And so on. Well, today we will review those steps in the proper chronological order to empower you to conduct a quantitative analysis study. And second, we will relate this process to the Bachelorette TV show to make it easier to understand, implement, and enjoy. So by the end here, we should be able to see that if you can understand the concept of the Bachelorette TV show, you can fully understand the concept of implementing a quantitative data analysis study. Now, the first obvious question before we start is, if I can grasp the Bachelorette TV show, and that will help me understand data analysis, if I happen to learn data analysis first, will that help me to understand the Bachelorette TV show? And unequivocally, the answer is yes. Okay, so here we have the scientific actual 7 steps of data analysis. These are the 7 steps as they pertain to a cross-sectional study, meaning the dependent variable is measured at one time. And these are the 7 steps you would follow to conduct a quantitative analysis study in that case. Real fast, first one, we would look at the study map, meaning we would map out the relationships we're going to examine. Always start off with the end in mind. Number 2, data entry. Are the data entered correctly into the database? 3, checks of data integrity. Are the data appropriate for this study? And then 4, 5, and 6 are the actual analysis. 4 is univariate analysis, also called descriptive analysis, where you look at the characteristics of one variable at a time. Step 5, bivariate analysis, is where we look at the one-on-one relationship between variables, specifically the one-on-one relationship to see which explanatory variables have a significant relationship with the dependent variable. Then 6, multivariate analysis, where we take all the significant relationships from step 5 and regress them upon the dependent variable. That's why it's more than one variable on one, so multiple predictors on one dependent variable. And that'll show us the strongest relationship. And then 7, the write-up and report, the reporting of results, which is a whole nother big process after the first step. First 1 through 6 steps. So here we have an actual illustration of the study map, step 1 in the quantitative analysis process. So on the left, we have mapped out what variables we're looking at, the data analysis, as you see underlined there. So we are looking at if gender, right, an explanatory variable, is related to happiness. Is education related to happiness? Income, is living with a dog or a cat related to happiness and positive attitude? So our question is this: which are significantly related to happiness? And of the significant ones, which is the strongest predictor of happiness? Then on the right here, I took the liberty of switching it from data analysis to data analysis, in honor of the Bachelorette show. So we're looking at data analysis. And of course, the goal here is to figure out which bachelor has the strongest relationship with the bachelorette. On the left, same thing. We have bachelors 1 through 5 and the bachelorette on the right, and we're looking for, just like the data analysis, which is the strongest relationship. Is it bachelor 1? Is it bachelor 4? We will see. Now, we don't want to switch these up. This is important. You see on the left here, we've switched happiness, the dependent variable, with lives with dog or a cat. So we want to have the right variables mapped. So this is the beginning. This is the trajectory of the study. And you're off here, you're off the rest of the study. And then also for the bachelor, you can see the bachelorette has been switched with bachelor number 5. So the other 4 bachelors are no longer looking at the bachelorette, they're looking at bachelor number 5. Does that cause a little havoc? Well, just ask bachelors 2 and 3. So stick to that study map. Okay, step 2, the data entry. So on the left, we see for data analysis, right? We fill out the survey, then we put the values in an SPSS spreadsheet. There's more to it than this, but we're truncating the process. Then on the right, the data analysis. Okay, so it's just the fellows lining up, giving their information at the computer. Both instances, we're providing data. Now, the checks of data integrity. Are the data appropriate for the study? This is where, as they say, the rubber meets the road. So this is often the most complex thinking part of a quantitative data analysis study, to make sure the data are appropriate for analysis. So in data analysis, checks of data integrity include test assumptions such as, is the variable normally distributed? And we can see in this bell curve here, it looks pretty normal. Now what doesn't look normal is on the right, that potential data, right? So checks of data integrity are necessary for the bachelorette show because you don't want a fellow like this showing up on set. He looks a little suspicious. Now, in terms of data analysis, there are 4 areas where data integrity must be checked, right? So consider, what's the value of a study if the findings are incorrect? And just one violation of data integrity can create an error in the data, and the findings might be based on the error instead of the actual relationships between variables. So 4 areas that must be checked. Statistical power. Do we have an adequate sample size to test our hypothesis? Checks of test assumptions, like we said, normal distributions, outliers, and so on. 3, missing data. That's actually what you should do first. You want to look, see how much data are missing within the data set, and come out with a solid number of participants before you start anything else. And 4, the measurement tools. So this is where we look at things like the level internal consistency reliability, right? The Cronbach's alpha. If we have a normed scale and we combine the items, is a Cronbach's alpha 0.7 or above to indicate one construct is being measured reliably. So this is where all the work is. The actual analysis afterwards is just fun. This is the stuff. So we start the data analysis. We start with the univariate analysis. In the univariate analysis, we're looking at the characteristics of each variable at a time. So for example, uni meaning 1, it's also called descriptive analysis, but suppose we wanted to look at our dependent variable happiness, which is continuous. It's measured on a scale of 1 to 5. Right? So it's like getting to know you. You're getting to know each variable. Measured on a scale of 1 to 5, the average score is 3.7. The min-max, which is highest and lowest scores, are 2.0 and 4.0. Now on the right, you'll notice that the Bachelorette show starts off exactly like data analysis starts off. The very first show, the people are describing themselves. What's the characteristic of each person? What's the characteristic of the Bachelorette? Each contestant. They're talking about who they are, where they came from, right? So uni data analysis, uni meaning one data. So this fellow Bachelor Bob, he's from Ohio, he likes hiking, he's looking for an LTR, a long-term relationship, or that's what he told the producers anyway. So in data analysis, this part doesn't look like Bob, it looks more like this. So this is table 1, where we're presenting the characteristics of each variable one at a time. So education, what's the number and percentage of study participants in high school, right? The N is 32%. In college, graduate school, lives with a dog or a cat, right? So everyone lives with a dog or a cat. We can see that 47 people, 47% of the sample live with a dog, 53% of the sample live with a cat. Now we come to the bivariate analysis, step 5 in the steps of quantitative data analysis. So here is where we're figuring out where are those significant one-on-one relationships between the explanatory variables and the dependent variable, right? Bi meaning two, so it's a comparison of two variables. Now, we'll look into this more in a second, but we could see that gender and positive attitude are not significantly related to happiness, but education, income, and lives with a dog and a cat is. Now, in the data analysis, what is she doing in that second episode, right? The first episode, they talk about themselves. The second episode, she's figuring out who does she have a significant relationship. The Bachelorette is saying, I have a significant one-on-one relationship with Bachelor 1, Bachelor 2, and Bachelor 4, but I do not have a significant one-on-one relationship with Bachelors 3 and 5. So just like the show, right? The next step, those bachelors don't go to the next step of the show. And then exactly like data analysis, those variables, gender or positive attitude, that are not significantly related to happiness, don't go on to the next phase of data analysis. So sometimes you can call it the bivariate analysis, as in instead of BI, BYE, because you're saying bi, right? In data analysis, we're saying bi to gender and positive attitude. In data analysis, we're saying bi to bachelors 3 and 5. So in terms of the bivariate analysis itself, each line here, each arrow is representing a single test. So test 1, is there a significant relationship between gender and happiness, and so on. So there will be 5 separate tests, each testing that bivariate relationship. And we can list the findings right here, right? So no significant relationship for gender positive attitude, but for the middle 3, there is. So the middle 3 go on to the next phase of data analysis. And how do we know if it's significant? When we did the bivariate test, the probability was 0.05 or below. So when we did the test, we say, okay, the probability is 0.05 or below, so that's a significant relationship. They move on, the others are eliminated. And the table would look something like this. So we could see on the right here, the P is 0.011, 0.011. So that means there's a statistically significant difference in the mean, right, for those that live with a dog or a cat. So it's statistically significant. The mean is 3.0 for dog, 3.02, and for cat, 2.48. So we would say that there's a higher mean of happiness among people that live with dogs. And it's that simple. Yeah, well, this is even more simple, actually. So this is how the Bachelorette chooses her significant relationships. All she has to do is darken the ones with no significant relationship and leave the ones light who she wants to move to the next round. More of an emotional process than a cerebral. Okay, So step 6, the multivariate analysis. So we have more than one predictor, and that's a relationship with one dependent variable. So we could see here that they're all significant. So the dimension we saw before is there's all significant relationships. We could see that. But what's the strongest relationship? Education, income, or living with dog or a cat on happiness, which is the strongest relationship. And the same thing on the right, the data analysis, right? So the Bachelorette, she has her significant relationships, and what she's looking for is what's the strongest relationship. And then she's going to give that person a rose. So in the Bachelorette, this is what it looks like, right? When you find the strongest relationship, she just walks on up and hands a rose, and that's the strongest relationship, and the question is answered. But for us, it looks more like this. So this is the regression model. Now there was 5 separate bivariate tests, but this is one regression model, one test. So we've regressed education and income, and do you live with a dog or a cat on happiness? Now we just look at the p-values. Okay, so we see everything here is above 0.05, both education categories and income level, but living with a dog or a cat is below 0.05, right? 0.002, right there. So what we're saying is whether you live with a dog or a cat predicts your level of happiness beyond your education level and beyond your income level. So that's quite a leap, but you get findings like that sometimes, right? And then, yeah, okay. So that's our strongest relationship, living with a dog or a cat on your happiness. So be careful when you go to the pet store, what you do. And there we go. So you see the rose on the right? This is the equivalent of giving the fellow the rose is the strongest relationship. And then of course, step 7, the write up and report, which has a whole bunch of steps within that, steps within steps. So on the right, we have data analysis is the grand finale show. And on the left, we have the write-up and report of the quantitative data analysis study, be it a research report, peer-reviewed journal, dissertation, and so on. So there you have it. You have the 7 steps of each process that mirror one another. Step 1, the study map, right? What relationships are being compared, just like a data map. Step 2, data entry, which is the same on both sides. Step 3, checks for data integrity, just like checks of data integrity. And then step 4, univariate analysis, unidata. We're looking at the characteristics of one variable or person at a time. 5, bivariate analysis or bidata, where you're looking at the significant one-on-one relationships, which go forward into step 6, multivariate analysis, where we determine finally the strongest relationship between the independent variable's independent variable or the remaining bachelors for the bachelorette, and step 7, the write-up and report, and the grand finale show. So it's all really pretty simple. Now, we've talked about the similarities between data analysis and the Bachelorette show. So let's talk about the differences. Now, the Bachelorette show does not have a webinar class that fosters your success in watching the show, right? You could conceivably take a webinar class, before the show begins that teaches you to look at human behavior and trends, and you could tell who might win. That webinar class does not exist. However, the 7 steps of data analysis does have a webinar class fostering your success. As in, we mentioned initially, how can I complete my study? Well, there's a 6-week webinar class. They teach you all the ins and outs. Now, I'm not saying The Bachelorette is a cheap show, but when you look at it, the prize is another contestant, right? And then if you're a TV viewer, you don't really get any prize at all. However, with the 7 Steps of Data Analysis webinar class, you get a free copy of the 7 Steps of Data Analysis textbook and a 1-hour consultation. Just something to keep in mind. So to learn more, to enroll, you could go to our website, the www.statswhisperer.com, and go to webinars and the steps of data analysis, or click the link below this presentation. All right, well, I hope this was helpful in unearthing the steps of data analysis, and thank you for tuning in.